Kia ora koutou. Welcome to this Healthcare Home webinar on managing your health over the festive season. Let's start with karakia and then we'll move into introductions and whakawhanaungatanga. Gary, would you be prepared to do our karakia for us, please?
Sure. Kia ora, Bridget. Here, karakia whakatimatanga. Tutawa mai I runga, tutawa mai I raro. Tutawa mai I waho, tutawa mai I roto. Kia tai o ai, te Māori tū, te Māori ora. Ki te katoa, homiye, huye, tae kie. Amene.
Kia ora, and thank you very much, Gary. Tēnā koutou katoa. Tōko Bridget, ko Bridget Allen tōko ingoa. I'm the Chief Executive of Te Wakarangi Health Network, and I sit on the Healthcare Home Collaborative Governance Group, and it's my privilege to be your chair for this webinar tonight. I'm also unfortunately bringing apologies from Merle Samuels via Merle's not so well, but she sends us all her very best wishes. And now I'll call on our panel to introduce themselves. Gary, perhaps if you could go first.
Yep, kia ora, Bridget, and tēnā koutou katoa. I'm from Tamaki Makaurau, Auckland. I've been married, got 2 children, 5 granddaughters. I've been part of the health sector, mainly in peer support workforce roles since 2004. I retired in 2017. My last 3 years were working in primary health with what was then East Tamaki Healthcare in Otara, is now Tamaki Health. So I coordinate the Health Consumer Advisory Service for Health Navigator. I'm also involved with Changing Minds and the Whakatau Mai series of wellbeing sessions. And I'm on the collaborative Healthcare Homes. So kia ora, welcome everybody.
Thank you, Gary. And now one of our presenters tonight, Emma Fromings. Emma, would you like to introduce yourself? You need to unmute, Emma.
Yeah, that's better. Kia ora koutou. My name is Emma and I am a health improvement practitioner at Tawa and Linden Medical Practices. This is a new role for New Zealand. Increasingly, we're going to have more health improvement practitioners at medical practices. Our work involves supporting patients who are feeling stressed or worried or wanting to make changes to improve their health. So it's a real pleasure to have the opportunity to be part of this webinar tonight. Prior to this, my work has mainly been with focusing on dementia, actually. So this is a new area and one I'm enjoying. So thank you.
Thank you, Emma. And Dr. Kirsty Lennon, who I'm sure many of you will know from her other webinars and her expertise in our healthcare home area. Welcome, Kirsty. Do you just want to introduce yourself?
Tēnā koutou katoa. I am Kirsty Lennon. I'm a GP up in the Kapiti Coast. I've now been in New Zealand for nearly 11 years. I live here with my husband and 2 children, and I previously have come from Scotland, as you probably can tell by the accent. It hasn't worn off at all. And I'm here tonight to give you a few tricks and tips on how to survive the festive season.
So thank you all very much indeed for putting aside this time at what I know is a very busy time of year. My role tonight is basically to host the webinar, and we're going to be focusing, as people have said, on how to manage your own health and that of your general practice team over the festive season. And as people have said, some practical tips and information onto how to manage your own health and wellbeing over December and January. As we all know, 2020 has been a really challenging year, and many of us have had to deal with situations that perhaps we've never found ourselves in before. So now, as we're coming towards the end of a year, we're all feeling a bit tired and so on. We need to be gentle on ourselves, our whānau, our colleagues, and our loved ones. 2021 is still going to have COVID-19 challenges on top of everything else. So I'm thinking we should all be taking a good break over this period to try and relax and refresh. This festive season can be a stressful, overwhelming, joyful, lonely time, full of laughter and tears and everything in between. And so tonight we're going to share some things about how being part of a healthcare home general practice can assist and complement your current healthcare arrangements. We've put together this great panel to provide an array of useful information to help you keep your health at the forefront over this time period. We're going to have some presentations and things, but there's going to be a great deal of opportunity for questions. If you've got any questions you want to ask the panel, if you use the little Q&A function button at the bottom of your screen, and we'll try and keep an eye on those and deal with them as they come up or as soon after that as we can. And there'll also be more time at the end if there's things outstanding. So now I'd really like to call on Emma to discuss some ways in which you can make sure that you practice self-care over this period. Emma, over to you.
So I understand that Kirsten's going to do the slides for me. Great, thanks, Kirsten. Just move that out of the way. Great. So, yes, as Bridget said, 2020 has had its challenges for us. And something that I have been reflecting on from time to time over this year is that this period of us trying to manage, live with COVID-19 has actually led to us experiencing a very unusual opportunity to practice a different kind of self-care. We were given top-level advice around self-care to do with COVID-19, those messages that you all know really well by now. And what we experienced from this was an example of the effects of when a person is practicing self-care, how that can affect so many more. So if we just move to that next slide, Kirsten, what I'm saying here is that through 2020, we had the opportunity to really see how clearly how looking after ourselves does lead to whānau care as well as community care, or health is probably a better choice of word. So the COVID-19 prevention practices that we were doing as individuals meant that we were keeping our family healthy, and in doing that, our community was healthy. It was really thanks to, in part, the 5 million people in New Zealand practicing self-care that has given us the ability to enjoy the freedom of being at level 1 at this point. So just a way of kind of reflecting really on practicing self-care and how if we look after ourselves, whether it be through COVID-19 or more generally our health, we are affecting the health and well-being of those around us. One of the many challenges I hear as a HIP is people telling me, I find it's really hard to look after myself. I feel like I've got to look after everyone else first. And I think perhaps if we reflect a little on how this has panned out for us, it may help change perspectives. So again, in my practice as a HIP, I sometimes find the opportunity to be using the experience of living through this year, and particularly through lockdown, to help people really focus on their own well-being. So asking them some of these questions, giving them the space to reflect on them, can be helpful. And I've shared on the next slide a few things that patients have said to me. So if we can just move to the next slide, Kirsten. So I've had people saying to me, during lockdown, I started walking every day and I've kept this up. And I've had people say to me, I stopped going to the pool because of lockdown and haven't been able to start up again. I've had people say, we used to have meals together as a family during lockdown, but that's kind of slipped away. We don't do that anymore. We're too busy. So taking a moment to, at some point, think about how you were through lockdown and what were the things that you learnt through that, both what was helping you and what wasn't. So with this slide, you can see that there are a couple of more reflections. People have said to me, I've discovered I need people around me. I've discovered that when I was in lockdown, I found it really hard to just be at home, just to be on my own, or just to be with the family. Some people didn't know that about themselves until they were put in that position. And then I've had other people say, I've learnt I actually prefer time on my own. I work better at home on my own. Some people have learnt they need routine. Some have found they thrive on change. And another one that comes through quite strongly with the people I see is family is the most important thing in my life. That's what I've realised from this year. And for some, they've said, work is the most important thing in my life. And for some, that's actually an okay thing. For some, not, and they've had to revisit it. So the next slide has a quote. What we all deserve is a great Christmas. And I don't know about you, but I've been hearing that quote a lot. And one of the places I've seen this, and actually I think it's been done really well, is if we go back a slide to the Stay With Him, thank you. One of the places I've seen this done really well is with the New World ad. I don't know if people can picture that. There's a New World ad on at the moment which does a collection of little snippets of the kind of joyful or sometimes funny moments that people experience during lockdown, to remind us of that time. And then it finishes with, and what we all deserve now is a great Christmas. And I can understand the sentiment behind those words, and yet what I also have heard often in my health improvement practitioner work is that when people say, I feel like I deserve something, it tends to be just as they're about to do something that possibly isn't the healthiest. So if we can go to the next slide. So generally people will say, I deserve this tub of ice cream, or I deserve that second bottle of wine. And they'll use that phrase as a way to justify when they're about to do a behaviour that's not entirely healthy for them. And advertisers are very aware of that at the moment, because if they can tell people that they deserve something, then they may go out and spend more money. So I'm highlighting this just to raise awareness, really. Just be noticing when you're seeing those words, you deserve a great Christmas. And just ponder, is this about a healthy action to follow or unhealthy? I'm now going to move to just a few questions for you to be pondering around how you might nourish yourself over these next weeks. What foods, drinks help your body work at its best? Who of the people you spend time with brings out the best you? And what movement does your body enjoy? So these questions can be a way to kind of stimulate, again, a bit of reflection. And the next slide is talking about rest. What is restful for you? So rest is often the missing piece with the people that I see. We hear a lot about relaxation, we hear a lot about mindfulness, but quite often what we're not thinking about is restfulness. And resting is something that can be missing from many people's lives. I see people who only rest in those brief minutes before they fall asleep at night. That is their only moment of rest through their day. So again, I encourage you to be thinking about what feels restful to your mind and what feels restful to your body. I would now like to share something rather special with you. This is an absolutely beautiful book, just recently published, written by a rather stunning woman, Dr. Hinemoa Elder. She has written this absolutely beautiful book where she reflects on many things that have been meaningful to her and to her work as a psychiatrist. She has written this book reflecting on whakatauki, and the one that I've chosen tonight for us to think about is the one that you see in front of you, Aroha mai, aroha atu. Simply translated, meaning love received demands love returned. For Hinemoa, this had great meaning to her because she was reflecting on a time when she realised she had retreated to what she calls the cave of work. I'm looking at the book now as I talk to you, reading straight from it. She said, I had ensured that all of my time was devoted to the many contributions I felt compelled to be involved with. Maybe you can relate. I wanted to make sure I was responsive to the multiple needs of my extended family and community. And at a certain level, this was my way of avoiding a deep level of connection with my own heart. This was diminishing my inner wellspring of aroha, and I could begin to feel that I was running on empty. And again, reading those words, thinking about the people I see people who are running on empty. For Hinemoa, she developed a practice that focused directly on aroha. She has made a daily practice of recording memories of precious moments to fill and remind her of a sense of aroha. And for her, this has been quite a pivot and a change in how she is working and how she feels. This is a beautiful book, one that I think anybody would enjoy and learn from, but particularly those who are working in the health field. If you're looking for ideas for how you might treasure your team or gift your team, a suggestion I have for you perhaps is to buy a copy of Hinemoa's book and just have it in your staff room. I think my practice manager might be listening to this, but don't go and buy it, Angela, because I've already bought the team one. So just a little thought. So that is my last slide that you're looking at now, which is some well-being gift ideas. Obviously, I'm recommending Hinemoa's book. But I'm also recommending another fabulous book called Araha's Way. I have had patients that I've worked with really benefit from sharing that with their children who have been affected by our challenging year. And I've also recently discovered this brand new magazine in New Zealand called Thrive. I'm very impressed with the articles in there, lots of ideas for well-being. So don't know that you'd expected to get gift ideas with this webinar, but there you go. So thank you. I hope you found something in this that helps you.
Thank you so much, Emma. I had not expected to get gift ideas, but I'm totally delighted with those. I happened to browse the children's book, Araha's Way, at the children's bookshop a couple of weeks ago and thought it was beautiful. So thank you. That's fabulous. But thank you also for those very thoughtful questions. I was reflecting as you were going through it and I was thinking, yes. So thank you for posing them to us. Gary, I'd love to move to you now, please, to take us through some things you want to share.
Sure, thanks, Bridget, and kia ora anō. Look, several years ago, and many of you watching will probably remember this, that the Mental Health Foundation introduced and promoted the 5 ways to well-being, and from memory, it started off during a Mental Health Awareness Week. I'm not sure how long ago it was, but it would be at least a decade ago, I think. And so they've subsequently, I think on the subsequent years, they picked one of these areas each year and focused a lot of their promotion work, mental health promotion and wellbeing promotion around this. Which has been great, and obviously Mental Health Awareness Week is sort of a major focus for that, but actually that's just a window of opportunity for people to get involved. So what I'd like to do is just go through briefly these 5 ways to well-being. Collectively they're gems, and they're sort of things that really help. You know, they're good for mental health, for what you can do to build into your day. So let's start with connect. So to connect is just to talk and listen and to be there and feel connected. So we know that strong relationships with others are an essential part of building resilience and boosting one's well-being. You know, connecting with others, including colleagues, friends, whānau, and the wider community promotes that well-being, and it helps build a support network for when times get tough. And we need people when times get tough. We all need to feel close to other people and valued by them. At work, having good relationships with colleagues helps us to stay motivated and engaged. And connecting is about being there for others, talking and listening and feeling a sense of belonging. So some of the things that you can do around this connection is just talk to somebody, but also really listen. There's huge value in listening, really listening to somebody, and you're also reflecting the right things to them, that yes, they are listening to me, which is great. You can reconnect with an old friend you haven't been in touch with for a while. You can play with your kids. You can talk on the phone instead of emailing. Which is cool. So we'll move on to give. So this is giving your time, giving your words to somebody, just making people aware of your presence through giving. And giving makes us feel good. It does. It makes everybody feel good. And carrying out acts of kindness, whether they're small or they're large, they can increase happiness, life satisfaction, and a general sense of well-being. And giving is more than just sharing material things with others. This is about giving them your time and cultivating like a spirit of generosity and supporting others, actively supporting other people. The acts of giving and receiving and being aware of acts of kindness, whether that be random acts of kindness or deliberate acts of kindness, It really gives us a sense of purpose and self-worth. Giving also builds mana and connection with others. And at work, a culture of giving helps to build a positive emotional environment and promotes connection and empathy and teamwork. And some of the things that you can do around this is to compliment somebody, you know, genuine compliment somebody on something that they've done or something they've said. Help a colleague with their work, you know, just do it. And you know, both people feel good about that. Expressing your gratitude and thanking someone is fine. So yeah, so it's giving, which is great. Okay, just moving along. So taking notice, just remember the simple things that give you joy, and paying more attention to the present moment. And Emma talked a bit about being in the present moment and around mindfulness, and you know, just being aware of your thoughts and your feelings, and the world around us can boost our well-being, you know, in so many ways, really. And using attention to increase awareness, your concentration, focus on the current moment, focus on the now, and whatever task you have at hand. It's been shown to improve your well-being and your mood. And it's really about reconnecting with the world around us, appreciating the little things. We've heard John Kerwin talk about that in his depression ads and the Mentor program that he runs, and just savouring that moment. And these things are just, they're good things to do. They don't take a lot of energy or time necessarily, but you know, plan to look at the night sky, and sometimes our sky is brilliant. You know, I always look for the Southern Cross, and when I do see it, it's really quite a special thing to do. Practice gratitude. Some people keep a gratitude journal and write down the things that they're really thankful for and grateful for. And just things like sitting quietly, just going to a park and just sitting on a park bench and listening to the birds and just taking in everything that's around you at that time. I love listening to favourite music. So one of the things in my wellness toolbox is listening to music. And when there's nobody else around, I'll just put it on the speakers. And if there are other people around, I'll just plug it in my ears and just listen to my iPod. So that's, you know, that's really cool. So keeping learning. As they say in Te Reo, mea ako tonu. And learning has a lot of different meanings around learning. So it is embracing new experiences, seeing opportunities, and actually surprising yourself. Because I know with me, when I retired 3 years ago, one of the things I wanted to do was to learn Te Reo, and I kind of surprised myself that I knew a bit more than I'd credited myself for. Having said that, it's a long journey, and I've got a long way to go to be competent in actually speaking Te Reo. But you know, with learning, setting yourself goals, being open to new ideas, and continuing to learn, you know, throughout life helps again to boost well-being and to build resilience as well. Yeah, learning's more than just formal education. It's about exploring new ideas, just seeing opportunities, embracing new experiences, and sharpening our skills. It means being curious and having an inquiring mind in all areas of life. So, yeah, take a course, you know, have a look at them. There's a lot of courses that you don't have to pay for, which are brilliant. And just anything that you really feel a connection with that sort of learning. Yeah, and listen to a podcast like the one where, you know, like wellbeing seminar or sessions and webinars and so on. Something that gives you, that will actually add to your learning. And the last one I'll concentrate or focus on is being active, doing what you can, enjoy what you do, and it does help to improve and lift your mood by being active. And being physically active every day is great for our bodies and our minds. You know, as well as improving physical health and fitness, being active can also improve our mood overall mental well-being, and decrease things like stress, depression, and anxiety. And I know that it's been massive for me. Having that as part of my wellness toolbox is to keep active in a number of different ways. That doesn't mean that you have to go for a run and sort of sweat it out and that sort of thing. You do whatever you enjoy doing. But it might be going for a run, but you know, where you can sort of be connected or be in your own space. But the benefits are increased when we get outside and do it. And you know, being active with others can help us. So we feel more connected. It motivates us to build or create and build some new habits. So you know, go for a gentle stroll if you're working at lunchtime. Go outside, go for a stroll during your lunch break. It does make a big difference to your afternoon. Take a yoga or Pilates or Tai Chi class, which are very relaxing things to do and great for the body and the mind and the spirit. Use the stairs instead of the lift and do some gardening. So yeah, a lot of things, and I really want to say thank you to the Mental Health Foundation, not only for providing these resources, but a host of other resources. The Health Promotion Agency are very supportive around that as well. So they've provided a lot of resources. You'll see on the bottom of the slide there, mentalhealth.org.nz. Go onto it. It's a brilliant website, lots of tips, and kia ora and pomare.
Thank you so much, Gary. And it's having come across the resources somewhat previously, they are very, very good indeed, and we'll have more to share at the end of the webinar as well. Look, we've had a bit of a question pop up. We could all hear a little bit of typing. As far as we can tell, we're all being very disciplined and being muted. But if there is somebody who's on the call who's not muted and who is typing, could you please either mute or stop typing? It would be great. It's just a little distracting in that space. But look, coming back to what we're talking about here, I think it's important to note that actually the healthcare home model, the general practices that are implementing that are actually developing wellness plans for a number of the patients in their practices. And so if you've got the opportunity to talk to your practice about what a wellness plan for you would look like, it can be quite a holistic thing. It doesn't have to be just about your medical care. It can be about your whole lifestyle, including the things that Gary and Emma have been sharing with us. But look, Kirsty's much more the expert than I am on these things. So I'm going to ask her now to please discuss some more of these practical tips and things that she was talking about earlier. So Kirsty, over to you.
Thank you, Bridget. So yes, I suppose my role was to kind of concentrate it a little bit more maybe on the physical, but I think that good health isn't just about physical health, but also about the spiritual and family and mental health as well, which both Emma and Gary have gone into quite well. But here are my kind of few tips and tricks. That's a bit of a mouthful. So I think my first message is that general practice is open. We only close for the statutory holidays and weekends. Most practices will be open between Christmas and New Year. You're not bothering us. We want to see you if you are not well. We want you to use the patient portal and consider telephone consultations or video consultations. Most practices now offer any form of consultation. So don't ever think, oh, will I phone, won't I phone? Always phone if you're not sure. But there are some simple tips that you can do to try and keep yourself well. Have a look in your cupboard, see what medication you've got. Is your medication up to date? Are you going to run out over the festive period? Just think about it and kind of order it. All practices are aware you might be ordering a little bit early over the festive season. Sometimes you need to be seen, but sometimes it's okay to get your medication. And remember to take it. That's the other thing. In the mad rush of Christmas, just make sure that you're taking a bit of time in the morning, put your medicines somewhere where you will always see them so that you make sure you take them on a regular basis. Make sure you maintain your fluid levels. It doesn't seem like it at the moment, certainly on the Capity Coast, it's absolutely pouring. But as soon as that weather gets hotter, just make sure that you're drinking plenty of fluid, water, just to keep yourself well hydrated. And from that point of view, be sun safe as well. We often see some very bad burns when people don't kind of be aware of how strong that sun is. And so using a good strong sunscreen and popping on a hat and following the guidelines are absolutely perfect to do that. Perishable food, make sure it's in the fridge, especially this time of year, and don't leave anything out in the sun for long. And if you're having that Barbie, just make sure you cook everything really well. These are just simple tips that we often see at this time of year when things happen. So it's about kind of preventative care a little bit. As Emma and Gary have talked about, that mental health side of things is really important. Remember to take the time to rest. Remember to do, I always tell my patients, do something you enjoy doing every day. It really can help to lift the mood. Make a contact with the earth. Go outside at least once a day. Do a little bit of activity. And the mindfulness thing, people have talked about it through this webinar, and it is important. It's important you use that. It's a simple technique where you use all of your senses to basically enjoy something, to really kind of take stock. And if you want to, there are a few apps that are really useful in this space. Headspace, for one, is one that I use and recommend to others because it can be really quite helpful. Remember the time with your whānau, and it's important. Check on people. Don't assume your neighbours and your friends are okay. You know, just pop in the door, pick up the phone, just check that everyone's all right. Have a basic first aid kit available. I was looking in mine to try and see if I had everything on and what I would recommend, but I think there are some really simple ones, things like paracetamol for headache and fever, rehydration fluids in case you get an upset stomach, a simple dressing pack, plasters, that kind of thing for simple cuts and bruises. Some antiseptic cream is always a useful one to have in that toolbox, just to pop on any little skin abrasions, etc. And an antihistamine, we all get bitten at this time of year, and having a little bit of antihistamine cream or a tablet can be really useful. And people do struggle with their hay fever as well. I asked my colleagues what they would probably recommend, and I think the one thing we kind of see a lot of is alcohol related injuries. So it's about drinking sensibly, making sure that you don't overindulge, that you potentially eat a little bit before you start having any alcohol, and just drinking plenty of other fluids at the same time can really help stop the kind of adverse effects that alcohol can bring. So yeah, just, I'm not saying don't drink, but I am saying just drink sensibly. And the other thing I would say is obviously to follow the COVID rules, which we alluded to at the beginning, that are really, really useful. So just to keep doing what we're doing, because we are in a lucky position. I have family and colleagues over in the UK who are in a very different position this Christmas. And I think we have to be really thankful that we're not in that situation. So keep doing what you're doing, because I think it's really important. And to my colleagues, I would say we should put our opening hours on our websites, our Facebook pages. How to access your out of hours care is really important so that people know. And in fact, if you phone your practice, generally you are put through to the out of hours service at whatever time you phone. If the general practice isn't open, then it will put you through to who is around for your care at that time. And also think about, again, signing up for your portal. It's a really good way, just emailing your doctor, The portal often allows you to look at your own blood results, and also just to kind of engage more with your health. It's a really useful way to interact with your practice. Telephone consultations are now the norm within practice, as are video consultations, and most practices have the facilities to run that. So if you're not even in the area, you can access your family. And the last minute is our colleagues in the pharmacy industry, and the pharmacies will be open as well. And there are simple things that the pharmacist can help you with and treat. Simple things like a simple UTI or a urinary tract infection, or even conjunctivitis. So it's just to remember there are other resources out there as well. So that's a kind of brief summary from me. I'm sure there's a lot more that we could go over, but this is a kind of simple thing to kind of stop those really simple things that we see over this time, which could kind of be prevented. But I think everybody should stay safe, and I think everybody should take this time to really try and take stock of the things that we kind of enjoyed maybe over our lockdown period. I certainly learned a lot about myself, I think, during that time, but also to kind of reach out to others and to make sure that our mental health is still okay, because it can be quite stressful.
Kirsty, thank you. Some great reminders in there. I'm going to go check my first aid kit straight after this. But look, as the questions come up from one of our participants tonight, asking how do you and your colleagues as clinicians keep yourselves safe and well during this busy and stressful time? I think it would be great if you could just answer that one right away.
Yeah, so I mean, I would say that I try to practice some mindfulness. The thing I enjoyed over the lockdown was actually, as Emma said, I got out on my bike, and I haven't managed to do that since I've been back at work. So I need to try and get back out on my bike and enjoy that bit of physical activity. I also kind of take the time to relax and spend time with my family, because often I don't see them. Well, I do see them every day, but you know, when you're busy, it's not time to concentrate on them. And I think now it is time. I also love a bit of art. Art is absolutely my relaxation thing. And in the last few weeks, I've been decorating my front windows with Christmas things, which has really kind of helped me. I love it. It's just a bit of relaxation for me to enjoy.
That's great, thank you, Kirsty, and I'm sure there'll be other stories that will pop up as we go forward. But as you were talking through that list, I was just reminded when you were talking about the medications and the use of the portal that we've got some interesting patient stories. And Gary, I know you've got one or two you might just quickly share with us about the value of those things.
Yes, yeah, thanks, Bridget. Yeah, indeed. Look, I'm going to start off with my own experience this time last year, and I'd have to say that last December and January was not very festive for me, and I wouldn't want to repeat it, to be honest. And sort of a bit like the marathon. We talk about the marathon and the sprint, but it's something that I had not prepared myself well enough for that, and so I found myself in crisis, and I needed to ring the 1737 line, which we'll talk later on, as well as one of those key areas that is available to us. And I have to say that my experience of this 1737 line, which is a triage line, but it's done in such a way that it's very, very compassionate, very understanding, and done very, very well, because I wasn't really in a state to talk about myself at all. So the way that they interacted with my wife around that period was really good. So it's an easy number to remember, 1737. It's available at any time. I understand you get a choice now of whether you speak to a peer, i.e. somebody else with lived experience, or a counsellor. So it's one of the options you have. So that's just my personal story. A couple of the other ones that that we've got sort of came to our attention was a patient was away from home. They had a video consult and was able to get a script for the antibiotics sent to a local pharmacy. So the message in that is that you can still see your GP practice even if you're away, and Kirsty referred to that as well before. They're only a phone call or contact away. And the portal, just with the portal, it's already been talked about by both Emma and Kirsty, is you can use it for a number of things. I use it actually mainly to connect with my GP with some questions, but you can also order and reorder your medications. You can check the results of your last blood test. You can do all sorts of things, particularly around supplies over that Christmas holiday period. You can actually sort of ask for some more because you're going away, and so that can all be done through a patient portal. The last story I'd like to cover, Bridget, is just one where chap, his name is Hamish, and he left all of his medication at home. He lived in Cromwell, and they went through to Dunedin for a long weekend, and it was like this panic. What am I going to do? My Medicaid, I haven't got my meds. So he was able to order them through the portal and have them sent through to a Dunedin pharmacy. So that's the beauty of technology, and be able to do this and being very responsive for that. So the message, I guess, the moral to that story is when you're packing for your trips away, and often it's a bit frantic, particularly if you've got kids to try and organise as well, is to make that little checklist and make sure that on that you've got medication on that. There is a way around it if you do forget, but there's no need to skip your medication for a few days. Rather, you can actually get that request done through your GP through a portal or an email or a phone call. Kia ora, Bridget.
Oh, kia ora, Gary. Thank you very much too. So people, if you've got any questions that you want answered, please pop them through. I can see we've got one here. Oh, thank you. It's a lovely compliment. What a great webinar with lots of great advice. How can we share this far and wide? So we're recording this as we're going, and it'll be going up on the Healthcare Home Collaborative website. But one suggestion from here is to ask Health Navigator to include it on their website so that more consumers and providers can access it. So thank you for that very good suggestion. The Healthcare Home Collaborative links really closely with the Health Navigator website. So we will pick up on that suggestion and explore that. And if it's going to be workable, we'll certainly spread the knowledge of that far and wide. So
and we know there are some people from Health Navigator hooking in tonight, so I'm sure they will have picked up the message. That's great.
Very cool. That's the wonderful thing about collaboratives, is that we all get to learn from each other, support each other. And it's really quite fascinating to watch the way that then we all go faster and better together because we're actually able to learn in that kind of way. Oh, we've got another question popping up. Right. Oh, Janine Bycroft is saying, yes, we will add it to the Health Navigator NZ website. Ngā mihi, Janine, thank you so much. That's great. Right. Okay. So, oh, they're coming thick and fast now. No, it's all good, I think. Sorry, I'm just learning this technology myself. Yeah, cool. Okay. So just thinking, we're coming towards the end of our webinar. If there are any more questions or comments that people would like to make, please pop them in right now. Gary, I've got one here though, one about someone who's thinking about ringing, they've thought about ringing a helpline before, but they've always felt they'd be judged, and so they've tried to deal with their challenges on their own. But your experience sounded different to that. Do you just want to reassure somebody on that?
Sure, yes I do. Yes I do, because it's we know there's a lot of stigma and discrimination associated with mental illness, and when you're in that space, the last thing you want is to feel that you're being judged or somebody's trying to sort you into a box to fix. And I've found that I know there's a number of different health lines and help lines, and we'll mention some of those at the end of the webinar. But I did find the 1737. I mean, there's been a number of different warm lines that have been around in the past that haven't been sustainable, generally because of funding. But the 1737 is quite honestly brilliant, and I have talked to other people who had very good experiences. And for me, the fact that I could talk to a peer, somebody just to listen to me, was good. But at times you also need a health professional and a counsellor. So very much support and recommend that line, Bridget.
Bridget, I've just got a comment. I mean, I think me and my colleagues at times have had to use these services ourselves. I think as part of our job, it can be very stressful. Mental health issues are very common. We see them a lot. We struggle with them a lot. And I think that no one should ever feel that they can't contact help when they need it. It isn't a stigma. One in 3 of us will have a mental health issue at some point in our lives, and sometimes quite significant. So I wouldn't ever be frightened of contacting somebody. I think people kind of can feel that, what will I say? What will I say? Well, I've had that feeling and going into a counselling session, and believe me, it's amazing how quickly everything comes out and how you find something to say. And often people within 1 or 2 sessions begin to feel a lot better. So please I wouldn't say to anyone to ever feel like that. I think the help is there. Please use it. Oh, you're muted, Bridget.
Yes, thank you. So that's a lovely comment there. Emma, have you got any sort of final comments you'd like to share with the people who are listening in tonight?
Well, it has occurred to me actually that maybe I could just pass on one little tip that the patients I've been seeing have said has been really helpful to them to use at various times, and it's a little instruction around how a breath exercise, a breathing exercise. So when I see people, they'll often say to me they've tried various breathing exercises and they've never worked, or it's too complicated. So I've been sharing one in recent times that seems to be helpful to some. So I thought if I could do that right now, that might be something that we can all take away and maybe share with patients if you are clinicians. So if I just move that down so you can probably see me a little bit better. It's just a really simple way of just checking in with your breathing. So the first step to it is you just place a hand on your chest and another one on your belly. And then you just take a moment or 2 to just notice which of your hands is moving. And as you notice that, you're not trying to change your breath at this point at all, you're just noticing it. Now for wee babies who are calm and safe and cared for, what you'll see is when they breathe, it's their belly that moves up and down. But as people get older and as they have difficulties come into their life, they start to breathe from here. And what we know is if people are breathing, moving from their chest using these muscles, it can actually keep them stuck in a bit of a stressed kind of state. So the first step to this breath exercise is just to notice, where are you breathing from? Is your belly moving at all when you breathe, or is it just from up here? And if you can, start to help your body to learn to move its breath from the belly, that instantly is going to make a difference to how you feel. So that's the first part of it. But this, if you've been breathing from up here for a long time, it might be difficult for you to train your body to come down to breathe from the belly. But just be a little mindful of that one. And for young children, it can be a really great exercise to get them to lie on the floor and give them, or get them to choose one of their little teddies and put their teddy on their tummy. And then ask them to breathe so that their teddy goes up and down for a little ride. And this is a great way for children who get worried, upset, or anxious to teach them to breathe from their belly. So that's the first step, is just kind of checking in this. The next bit is, often when people are stressed, they've been told, take a big breath. Breathe in, take a big breath. And that actually can create more anxiety. So instead, what I'm going to suggest is that you take a breath in that's gentle through your nose, as if you are just taking in the scent of a beautiful flower. So if you can just imagine you're just breathing in gently through your nose as if taking in the scent of a flower. So like this. And then you'll breathe out through your mouth. And what you do with this visual is you imagine you have a candle in front of you with a lit flame. And what you want to do as you breathe out is make that flame flicker, not go out entirely. You want it to just flicker. So if we breathe in as if you're inhaling the scent of a flower, and breathe out to the flicker of a flame. And the emphasis is on the breath out, not the breath in. So a simple breathing exercise. Check in first to see where you're breathing from. See if you can move it to your belly. Breathe in as if you're inhaling the scent of a flower, and breathe out through your mouth as if you are flickering a flame. So just a little breath tip.
Thank you, Emma. That's delightful. And I'm going to try that one with the teddy bear.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, good. Well, look, folks, we're coming towards the end of our webinar. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. Kirsten, can you flick up the next slide, please? Just because we're looking to just make sure that you've got the sense of that, your general practice. If you've got a portal, make sure you're signed up to use it. It can be incredibly useful in a whole range of circumstances over the holiday period, as much as it is during the rest of the year. So that's our first kind of big call out to everybody. Then on from our things tonight, we've actually talked about quite a lot of different resources. They're going to be available either on the website that Gary mentioned, the Mental Health Foundation website, or on the Healthcare Home website. So this is a great place to go for resources. And the other thing in here, of course, just to reinforce the messages, if you've got an emergency situation, obviously you call 111. But as Gary said, if you need to talk to someone, you can free call or text that 1737 number anytime. So I hope that's been useful. And just before we wrap up for tonight, I really want to, on behalf of all of us, I think, to thank our wonderful healthcare teams who've worked so hard this year. There's so many heroes out there. My teams, I know, the teams of all of our panellists here and across the country, healthcare workers through primary care and our hospitals and our community organisations have done amazing work. And so I just want to really acknowledge that and to thank you all and all of them for that amazing work. We want to wish you all a very wonderful, relaxing and loving festive season. If Fire Moore was here, she would probably have said something like Te mihi o te tauhou, kia koutou katoa. Best wishes for the new year that is coming. So thank you all for being here. Go well till we talk again. Thank you very much to our panellists. Kia ora koutou.
Kia ora, Bridget, and I'll just close our. Okay, kia ora, thank you. Okay, he karakia whakatimatanga to close our session today, or this evening. Kia tātou katoa, te atawhai o tō tātou, ariki, oi haikureiti, me te aroha o te atua, me te whiwhinga, tahitanga ki te wairo tapu, ake, amene.
Kia ora, Gary, thank you so much.